You and me, Hoss. Sentry, go, damn it, cut the move that gear. This thing ain't on an autopilot, damn it, cut the move that gear.
Where do I start? What do you think? What are you thinking? Short circuit? Do I get the fucking short circuit out of the way? Fine, I'll get the short circuit out of the way because I've already made 1.5 videos about this fucking item. I cannot stand the balancing philosophy of this fucking item. I absolutely fucking despise it. This type of item should not exist in a first-person shooter. This item reminds me of the old Sandman, where if you were under the effects of a Sandman, you could still move, but you couldn't attack or defend yourself. And that experience is absolutely fucking agonizing in a first-person shooter. I really do not like this item for a couple reasons. One, main reason, shuts down 2 out of the 9 classes in the game, and there's fucking nothing you can do about it. And then you have the issue of it being spammable on the fucking payload card, right? You have the payload card issue, you fucking hump the payload card as short circuit engineer, and you just spam orb after orb, and there's fucking nothing the enemy team can do about it. You're flashbanging the entire team because it just completely obscures field of view, so you don't know where the fuck you're shooting when you can shoot, right? And everyone else is like, fuck, I can't fucking see it. That's a very underutilized aspect of the short circuit, is you can fucking flashbang people with it. You want to make sure people can't see for a little while? Boop, just shoot a fucking orb out. No one can see shit for about a second. Horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. And it still does damage. It's like, it's still... like, it has the same multiple hits on single target thing, where it can still dish out a decent chunk of damage comparable to that of the fucking pistol. 15 damage per hit, and it can stack hits on the same target. Ugh, I hate this thing, man. It's ass to play against. The short circuit doesn't just help the engineer. It shuts down projectile damage for the engineer and his entire team. It's fucking awful. It does way too much. It has so much fucking influence. At what cost to the engineer? 60 metal? That is rapidly replenished by multiple sources? And he can vomit out multiple orbs if he wants to and shut down any kind of projectile push? Horrific. I hate it. A lot of people compare the short circuit to the air blast. It's like, oh, if you don't like the short circuit, then you don't like the air blast either. No. While both of them can effectively delete damage from projectiles, the flamethrower's air blast functions completely differently. The effective time span of a single air blast is incredibly small. It's like a 0.2 second window of effect. And if that projectile doesn't land within that box in those 0.2 seconds, you mistime it, you get fucking hit and die. The area of effect of a single air blast is markedly smaller than a single short circuit orb, because the short circuit is a slow-moving ranged projectile that has a lifespan of 1 second and covers a massive fucking area as it's moving through. You can never mistime a short circuit orb unless the guy you're engaging is right in front of you, and then you're fucked. And that's the thing too, the effective range of the short circuit is pretty far, so if you fuck up an orb, you can still move out of the way of a projectile that's not deleted. Ugh, it's like all of the common defenses of this item fall hideously short of justifying its existence in the game. And previous versions of this item were at least somewhat tolerable because the range was limited. While it was easily spammable and could delete way more projectiles in a single go without costing that much metal per projectile, its range was at least limited. So its effect was largely contained to the engineer and his immediate surroundings, usually just being his buildings and maybe close by teammates. Previous versions in that regard were way more tolerable, because in that instance it was actually doing its job in protecting just the engineer and just his buildings. But now it shuts down huge areas of the fucking map to protect the entire team and just effectively turns off 2 classes, and I despise that fucking mechanic. You have a guy spamming the short circuit, guess you just can't play fucking Demo Man right now. Guess you can't play Soldier right now. Oh, well, just play Demo Knight. Just play Demo Knight. Yeah, I'm gonna charge headlong into a goddamn sentry nest and the entirety of the enemy team with a fucking melee. Smart idea. Oh, just use a shotgun. Just use a shotgun on Soldier. You have the shotgun, right? Yes, I'm gonna use 6 shots out of a hit scan weapon with bullet spread that's only effective at medium to close range against single targets. And then if you have just an engineer by himself, just the engineer, no buildings nearby, fine. Demo Knight argument works, shotgun argument works. But as soon as you place any fucking sentry gun near the engineer and he's using the short circuit, your chances of survivability effectively plummet to fucking 0 as playing Demo Man or Soldier. Unless you're far enough away where you can spam the motherfucker out. That's it. It's the only time when this fucking weapon is not asked to play against is when you're spamming shit at a distance. But when does that ever happen? Engineers are usually vomiting orbs down choke points and completely denying projectiles from anyone, not just Soldier and Demo Man. Awful. Fucking hate it. And I don't know how they could properly balance this thing. I've always hated this mechanic. It's asked to play against. It's not fun not being able to shoot your fucking gun. It's horrible when you're engaging in a fight, not even against the engineer, and you know you are about to secure a kill on somebody with like a rocket or a pipe or a sticky bomb, something. And then out of the fucking blue comes a goddamn truck-sized orb slowly moseying its way across your line of sight and fucks you out of your shot. And then you can't do shit. You just fucking die. My pipe or rocket was deleted. Guess I'll die now at someone who was not even engaged in that fight. Who's like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking and just fucking squirt out an orb and deny this guy's ability to play the game. Absolutely fucking hate it. Way too reminiscent of the old Sandman where it just stun locked players and they only made them allowed to move, but not shoot for a short period of time. It's the exact same experience, except locked to a fucking orb that does damage more than the fucking baseball. I don't understand why people are so averse to the idea of tweaking this fucking item to make it not dog shit to play against. I don't understand why people are so fucking rabid and quick to defend this item. I don't understand it. When so many people, including myself, fucking despise it. I don't understand. Fucking nerf this thing, rework it, do something to make it more tolerable. And I don't know what they could do. I really don't. Let's move on. That's enough on the short circuit. You get the idea. I fucking hate this item. I hate what it does. I hate the design philosophy behind it. It doesn't belong in a first-person shooter. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum for a moment here. Let's talk about the Pomson. Man. Man. I hate this thing for the opposite reason. It's just so... It's so bad. It's so bad. Like, you can't even have fun with this thing. Like, you can't even whip this thing out and use it as, like, a gimmick. Like, with any other, like, notoriously bad item, you can still pull it out and, like, you do some silly shit with it. Why did they nerf the shit out of this thing? I forgot, like, they slowed down the projectile speed. Its damage is already pitiful, so now it's like firing pudding at people. This is the pudding gun. It's so slow and ineffective. Its stats are interesting. It's like, okay, it deals damage. Oh, it also removes cloak and it removes Uber. So if I play my cards right, I can fuck over a spy and a medic Uber push. But the amount of cloak and Uber you remove is only at its max when you're like inside of someone's fucking hitbox, man. The stats themselves, much like the short circuit, are fucking dog shit to play against. Imagine like, oh yeah, I'm gonna push in, then all of a sudden, whoop, a little tiny particle effect grazed your shoulder and deletes 10 of your Uber. Guess you'll die now. If you're expecting to push in with a class, you have Uber ready, and then this thing fucking clips you, and then boop, Uber's gone. Guess you'll die because you're pushing in with one other guy, and then you suddenly can't suddenly be invincible, and you immediately die to the entire enemy team because you thought you weren't gonna be able to die, but then you suddenly die. Ah, awful. And then imagine playing a spy, like, all right, I have cloak left. I have a little bit of cloak left. I can finish getting behind the enemy lines, and then like some little wayward shot just clips you, like, oop, I'm suddenly revealed now and can't recloak because I'm out of cloak. Why does the engineer have these items? The short circuit deletes the primary damage dealing capabilities of 2 classes in the game. The Pomson deletes the primary mechanic of the medic, which is building Uber, and another primary mechanic that is the spy being able to cloak. Why does the engineer have 2 items like this? Fuck! But the good thing about the Pomson is that its projectile is so fucking slow, and the amount of Uber it reduces and the amount of cloak it reduces is so hideously bad that it sucks, and it's never effective. It's a good thing that this weapon sucks because those stats it has on it are fucking awful to play against. Like, but the item, it's just bad all around. Its stats are there but don't work. Its damage is there but it doesn't do anything. Its projectile is so slow that it never fucking makes its mark. Even if you're like right next to somebody, you have to lead your shots so much that you can still miss it. It's so bad in so many ways. The gimmick of this item is that it's a projectile. That's the gimmick with this thing, is that it's a spammable projectile like the Righteous Bison. Not that the fact that the other two stats of removing Cloak and Uber are unfair to fight against. The gimmick is silly, wacky projectiles like, oh, I have the laser gun. That's the fucking gimmick I'm talking about. And then fucking whipping this out like, whoa, beep, 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 pew, pew. That's fucking fun. That's the gimmick you're going for. But you can't even have fun and do that with this thing because it's like throwing fucking like blowing bubbles. Like the fucking bubble one's like, little bubbles come out. It's like, oh, look at that. They're so pretty. And then they pop and go away and do nothing. It's like, I fucking hate. This thing's so fucking ineffective. And yeah, it's effectively the lowest tier. It's so fucking bad. It's effectively broken and needs to be reworked. Here's what you do. Remove those two stupid gimmicks of removing Cloak and Uber. Get rid of that. Dog shit stats to have in a game like this. Get rid of those entirely, increase its projectile speed, buff its damage a little bit, and just make it a pure fucking DM weapon, just like the Righteous Bison. Just make this the Righteous Bison for Engineer, and this thing would be fun as fuck to use. It'd be great. I would love it if this was just a simple DM weapon with the projectiles being a little bit faster. I would use this thing way more often just because it's fun. It's already a step in the right direction. And don't give it any like other weird gimmicks of removing stuff that shouldn't be removed. And that's it. Alternatively, let's go to what I would consider to be the Engineer's best primary, the Rescue Ranger. When this thing was added into the game, it was honestly life-changing. It was insane when this thing was first added to the game. Engineers being able to heal their buildings from a distance and then being able to pick them up from a distance is insane and completely changed the dynamic around Engineer play. It opens so many fucking doors. Also, I don't think Valve anticipated the shit people could do with this item because people were very quickly finding a lot of busted spots to place down sentries because you could like Wrangler jump up to somewhere and then you could, Rescue Ranger your building and then set it up on like an elevated platform where a building shouldn't be. They've had to go back to like so many maps and add no build zones on areas that Engineers could exploit to high hell because of this thing. But despite that, I would consider Engineer's best primary because being able to heal your buildings at a distance and also pick them up so long as they're within your line of sight and save them and store them for your next defensive hold is frankly invaluable. It's insanely good, stupid strong. Also, the burst healing you have with this thing, because you have 4 shots loaded, is really good too. The metal to health ratio is lower than that of the wrench, as it should be, because originally it was 3-to-1 for the Rescue Ranger. You would heal at the same rate as the wrench, which was stupid fucking strong at a distance. Did it not require metal to heal? I actually don't remember that. So they changed it so it actually uses metal. Good. So they nerfed it appropriately, and they changed to a 4-to-1 metal to health ratio, which is exactly what it needed, put it in the right spot, and it marked the Engineer for death when he was picking up buildings. It does need that as well. Need to have some kind of a downside for having a get out of jail free card for your fucking sentry gun. Make yourself squishy when holding the fucking thing. It's exactly how it needed to be. But it forces Engineer into a very specific type of play that is really boring after a little while. Whenever you're using the Rescue Ranger, it's all about building maintenance and only being super hard focused on keeping your buildings alive and then being able to bail out for the next defensive hold. You don't have a shotgun, you could use a pistol, whatever secondary you want, but you're not really able to roam autonomously on your own and like follow up on damage that your sentry gun just dealt. Because let's say you want to use this thing like a shotgun, it's infinitely weaker than a shotgun. The damage output's a pittance, it's a projectile instead of hit scan, so it fucks you over in both of those ways. So you can't go on the offense on your own when you're using this thing. Fuck the Wrangler. This thing is also just objectively broken because there is nothing like being able to instantly triple the health of your sentry gun, double its firing rate, and infinitely extend its range just by changing to a different item. Oh, it's busted. It sucks cock to play against this thing. Not nearly as bad as having to deal with the fucking short circuit Engineer. I think this is less broken than this, but this is still really fucking broken. Easily one of the most overpowered items in the fucking game. You effectively can't deal with this thing at a distance. You need, even like Uber pushes have a hard time dealing with a well-placed wrangled sentry gun. It's a 648 health sentry gun that you have to push into. Fucking sucks. And double the firing rate, so you're constantly knocking back anyone who's trying to get close enough to, damage it. It protects it completely against spam. Rocket spam can't take it down. Pipe spam can't take it down. So the only way to deal with a fucking Wrangler is just extremely hard focus fire from like the entire team or a heavy placed right next to it. But even then, it takes a fuckload of time to kill a sentry gun with the Wrangler shield up. I hate this thing. It's piss easy to use because the game still aims for you when you have this thing out because it has fucking aim assist. It's not like you're aiming perfectly on your own. The game snaps the targets for you. Double the firing rate, triple the health. Fuck this item. Oh, I hate it. This thing is useless if your sentry gun is just out in the fucking open, right? If you have your gun, you plop it down out in the fucking open where it's completely vulnerable to everything, spam, snipers, hit scan, what have you, then this thing is useless. At least with the Wrangler, it needs some kind of minimally well thought out positioning in order for it to be fucking ass to play against. Unless you're using a mini sentry. Listen, if you wrangle mini sentries, if you are the type of earthborn demon that uses a Wrangler on a mini sentry, I hope you stub your toe against a fucking rake and you dig one of those fucking teeth deep underneath your fucking big toe and it stays there for fucking ever. And then you get tetanus in your fucking foot. I wish that upon you if you use the goddamn Wrangler on mini sentries. Fuck you. You are the worst type of human being. You probably piss in your neighbor's cereal every morning. You probably bust into his house, fucking unzip your pants or drop your drawers for the ladies, and you squat or stand and urinate in the fucking milk. That's what you do. You are an evil bastard if you wrangle mini sentries. You're already borderline evil if you're wrangling sentries in general. But if you wrangle mini sentries, you are subhuman filth and deserve to be slapped on the ass with a very spiky metal bat. Fuck you. Because there's nothing quite like a 300 health mini sentry. Oh, it's so fun. It's so nice. So nice. So nice. And what's more is you can still heal your building while it's being wrangled. They nerfed it where it's the same metal to health ratio as if it were unwrangled. It's still 3-to-1, but it's reduced. So you're still healing the same amount of effective health it would have if it wasn't wrangled. So that's still really fucking strong because the effective health is tripled on this thing when the shield is up, which also sucks, right? If they were to leave this weapon and change nothing about it, you shouldn't be able to heal it with your wrench. You can still heal it with your rescue ranger because it's an even smaller amount of metal, but you should not be able to heal this thing while it's wrangled with a wrench. Then it'd be a little bit better. But even then, still sucks dick and it's overpowered because you still give it all those infinitely way more useful bonuses by just changing to mouse your fucking second weapon slot. I don't like this thing. I really don't. I think a lot of other people don't like it either. All right, let's move on. Let's do, I don't know, let's do the stock wrench. Here's the thing about the stock wrench. This is temporary placement. Let me expand upon this item for a moment. The wrench is just good. Just like the Spy's stock knife, it has a different utility aside from being a damage-dealing melee. The Spy's stock knife is what his main mechanic is based on, backstabbing people. The wrench is what the engineer uses to accelerate the building of his buildings and to heal them. And so at its base, it's good. It does everything as advertised. It's the most consistent. It's reliable. It gets the job done. But there are other options that are usually better to use all around most of the time in comparison to this thing. Because the Jag exists, this thing is usually outdone in performance by the Jag in more ways than one. And so when are you using this thing? You're not using this thing to get set up initially. You're using the Jag and you're using the fucking Eureka Effect. You're using this thing once all of your buildings are up and you're kind of there to maintain and hold. You remove sappers faster with this thing, you heal more health per swing with this thing, and you're using this when you got your shit up and you're just doing the defense game. You're using the other two when you're getting your building set up and you're wanting to get shit upgraded faster. And that's something else too. So the engineer is the single class in the game who most benefits by almost constantly changing your loadout during a round. Every other class in the game, you can pretty much slap whatever loadout you want and then just always play with that for a round start to finish. You can slap on lock and load, shield and sword for demo, or fucking sticky bomb, booties and pan for demo. You can pick any loadout for demo, any loadout for soldier, any loadout for scout, and be about equally as effective no matter what you pick. The engineer, however, is the only class in the game where he most benefits by constantly changing his primary and his melee to best suit the situation he's in. If you're putting your buildings up, you're going for the Jag, you're going for the Eureka Effect. If you're maintaining buildings, which is when you're doing a defensive hold, you're using the fucking stock wrench. If you're wanting to be really, if you want to be, turtle your weapons and you want to be able to, maintain them better, you're using the rescue ranger. If you're wanting to be more offensive, you're going with any kind of a shotgun variant. If you're wanting to be horrible and if you want to be masochistic, you're using the fucking Pomson. Engineer most benefits during active gameplay in a round by constantly changing his weapons to suit the requirements of what's at hand. Every other class can just pick a loadout and just fucking go. When you're not dynamically changing your loadout, the stock wrench is just okay. Because if you're just using one wrench the entire time, the stock wrench isn't the best option. Your best option is the jag, if you're gonna be using one wrench the entire time without changing your loadout. But if you're changing your loadouts as needed, the stock wrench is like A or B tier, because situationally, it's gonna be better than the jag or the Eureka Effect or the fucking metal anal fister. And which brings us to the jag, right? The jag is arguably the engineer's best wrench because it's good at all times, right? If you're not dynamically changing your loadout, gets buildings up quicker, it heals at about the same rate as the stock wrench, only 20 less health per swing, and it removes sappers in 3 swings instead of 2, and has a slight damage penalty. But in terms of doing what it's supposed to do, it's just all around most of the time better than the stock wrench. It only loses a bit of its luster when you're holding a defense, right? Because you can't heal as much. Spies are a little bit more annoying to deal with because of the 3 swings instead of 2. But even then, there are ways to counteract that. You can pair it with the Rescue Ranger to make up for that lack of healing. You can juke out a spy, hit a swing or 2 before the sapper comes off, kill the spy, and then use that 3rd one to get the sapper off, right? There are a lot of strategies you can employ to make up for the jag's downsides. Whereas with the stock wrench's downsides, in that it's slow, there's not really any other item you can pair it with at all times to make up for that. Whereas with the jag, you have other things to supplement its downsides. And that's why it's the best wrench. Because all around, if you're never using any other wrench at all times, jag's the best one to go with. Or if you're dynamically changing your loadout, this thing is insanely good. Especially when you're setting up at the beginning of a round, you fucking vomit out your teleporters with this thing first, swap over to this to get your guns built up faster, and then you're fucking set to go, man. You're golden. That's it. It's only very infrequently outshined by the stock wrench in very, very few scenarios. Like if you're taking direct fire from someone, this is going to be able to sustain your buildings for just a little bit longer. But again, if you're pairing the Rescue Ranger with this thing, you'll almost never need to use the stock wrench in that kind of a scenario because it's just you have this. You know, the jag's weaknesses are negligible a good amount of the time, especially when constantly swapping wrenches. Exactly, there you go. You summed it up perfectly because I cannot eloquently convey the ideas that I'm formulating in my head on the fly. It's just the best option. I'm gonna be right back. I'm getting a little self-conscious about my hair. My hair's kind of fucking and sucking, so I'm gonna grab a hat real quick. Not gonna hold you here for too long on this mid-roll thing. Just want to say a brief thank you for all of you that continue to watch my videos and give me all of the amazing support that you've been giving me. It really does mean a lot, and I, again, really truly appreciate it from the bottom of my fucking heart. Love ya. Not gonna do any intense shilling. All of the usual social media links are gonna be in the description, along with the link to my Patreon. Thank you to all my patrons. Thank you to all the people who continue to support me otherwise, either by watching my videos, sharing my videos, liking on them, commenting, liking, can't talk, really tired, have a fever, want to go to bed, but I'm doing this anyway, so yes. Let's do stock shotgun. It's like, okay, I kind of have to do both of these at the same time. So temporary placement, don't worry, give me a moment. Temporary placement, don't start fucking, flipping out. Why is it only in B tier? Give me a second. So, stock shotgun on engineer, much like the stock wrench, it's just good. If you're needing to suddenly defend yourself in some capacity, like a spy's close to you, this is old reliable. Or if you're trying to supplement your damage from your sentry gun, it's just good. It's just consistent, predictable damage. You know what it's gonna do. It's always there. It's just always a good option. You pretty much can never go wrong when you're using the stock shotgun on engineer. But if you're opting to be more offensive in terms of like supplementing your damage from your sentry gun or wanting to pick off solo targets on your own, then the panic attack is just going to be way better all the time. In fact, if you're just going for like a normal functioning shotgun on engineer, because you have the slightly wider spread, but it does more damage at the effective range where the shotgun should be used. And the engineer usually needs that quicker damage if like a spy is suddenly, next to him. And so he can whip out this thing and just pop a spy and quickly two-shot him and then be done with it, right? So in terms of self-defense, panic attack is better than the shotgun. And if you're playing on a Valve server, why are you using the stock shotgun anyway? Because, you have random bullet spread. If random bullet spread's on, go with the panic attack. If you're playing with engineer, if random bullet spread's off, stock shotgun and panic attack are about the same in terms of their functionality. Just in general, panic attack's gonna be functioning a little bit better. If you're doing battle NG with like the gunslinger, then either of these options are perfectly suitable, but this I think is gonna perform a little bit better. The wider spread on this thing, know, with consecutive shots is easily counteracted by just adding a delay between your shots, which you're normally doing anyway, so you can line up your next one to ensure that it hits your mark. The panic attack is easily the best option for engineer, hands down. Like, you're going to be using this more often than this, but this is still really good. If you want to go for this, if you want your effective range to be a little bit longer, use this instead of this. That's about it. Let's do the Widowmaker. The Widowmaker is a very polarizing item because it just takes the extremes of the shotgun and just pushes them even further to either end. This thing is weaker at long range because of bullet spread. This thing is insanely weak at long range because not only are you dealing a pittance of damage, but you're also chewing through your metal. So you're fucking yourself over even harder when you're using this thing. But at close range, this thing is way stronger than the stock shotgun. You can keep landing shot after shot after shot because you're replenishing more metal than you're using. So you just have this continuous stream of fire. And it's well balanced in that you have to aim rather well in order to make that metal back per shot. And if you don't, you fuck yourself over. This item, to me, has always been just pretty well fucking balanced. It's fun to use. You got a fucking like crits medic or something shoved up your ass. You can go fucking crazy with this. I'm gonna bump it. I would say it's worse than the shotgun. It's more fun than the shotgun, but unless you're able to be really skilled and land shot after shot, you're gonna fuck yourself over more often with this thing than with this thing. Is the reward that good? I mean, yeah, you're able to get off more shots and perhaps replenish ammo that you didn't have, but then if you're already low on metal, why would you risk using this to get off 1 or 2 shots to maybe get enough metal back while finishing off a target? See, for me, if I was already low on metal, I would just use the stock shotgun and pepper someone down and maybe pick up the ammo kit that I get from him after killing him, instead of risking missing that 1 shot I have left and then fucking myself over really hard by having no metal and no primary weapon. See, that's the problem too. If you have no metal, like if you have anything less than like 150 metal, you're fucked with this thing because you chew through your metal so fast. If you have like what, 40 metal, you have 1 shot, you're fucking done, right? It's like, it's so polarizing, man. It's the most rewarding engineer item in terms of its balance. You're heavily rewarded for landing shots, but you are heavily punished if you miss your shots. You mostly don't need more than 6 shots in a shotgun, so just stick with this. When at any time, you could potentially only have 1 or 2 shots at your disposal, and then if you use them and you miss, oh, you're fucked. Until you find a metal kit or get to a dispenser or a payload cart. Oh, yeah. So again, very polarizing item. Rewards you heavily, but also punishes you heavily if you fuck up your aim. But is it situational? I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to give it B tier. I think, here's the thing. I'll leave it in B tier. It's almost like upper C tier because this thing can screw you over pretty heavily if you're not careful. And I don't think it's better than the stock shotgun because this is far more intermittently reliable than this thing is. Because let's say you suddenly lose track of your metal count, like you're repairing your sentry gun. Your gun's getting hit, you're repairing your sentry, then all of a sudden, oh, there's a spy, or someone suddenly got too close to you and your gun's not focusing on them. Well, time to use my shotgun. Oh, I have 12 metal. Guess I'll die. The fact that it can screw you over in some situations like that, yeah. So I would say stick with this. Not with this. Metal is indeed everywhere, so you can make up for that a little bit, but again, unlike the short circuit, at greater ranges, this thing sucks and does nothing, so you're just losing metal and not getting anything back. Whereas with this thing, you're losing metal, but you're doing a whole hell of a lot more impact than this thing ever does. The metal punishment on this shines through exactly as it needs to, whereas with this, it's almost never a problem. This has the metal consumption thing balanced out perfectly well in comparison to this. So Widowmaker's pretty good, but low B tier. Low B tier, I would say. Let's do stock pistol. I think we'll do the stock pistol next. Like the stock shotgun, the stock pistol is just good. You know, you have an effectively infinite ammo pool with the stock pistol. You're never gonna run out of ammo with this thing. It's just good chip damage that is always reliable. We want to pick people off. It's semi-decent supplemental damage that you can, you know, pair with your sentry gun. And I mean, it's good. It's just reliable. Also, totally forgot to mention that this thing gives you a 10% damage bonus on the player that's being shot shot by your sentry, I almost never see people doing that. And very rarely do I feel like I'm being impacted by this, either using it or fighting against it. So I don't know why they added that bonus when even like a 10% bonus on a hit scan really doesn't make all that much. That makes the base damage of this thing 66 instead of 60, and then 99 instead of 90. If you're wanting something that almost always has bonus damage, just use the panic attack, and then not have your sentry gun have to be shooting them to get that bonus damage. And that bonus damage is only really impactful when you're right in someone's meat. And if you're gonna be in someone's meat, then just use this thing and do more damage, and not have to worry about chewing through metal to do more damage. This is bottom of B tier. Bottom B tier. Anyway, stock pistol, again, I would say stock pistol is probably more useful than the stock shotgun, because this can be paired with any other primary weapon in replacement of the follow-up chip damage you need. Rescue Ranger is best paired with, I would say, the stock pistol, because if you need that supplemental damage to deal with a spy that gets too close to you, or someone else that gets too close to you, you can whip this thing out and suddenly you're doing like, 17 damage per hit when they're right next to you. So, you know what? This fills in this thing's slot a lot more frequently for like that panic need some quick damage thing. But if you're playing Battle NG, then you're going to be using this, you're using a shotgun, right? But yeah, stock pistol, more consistent solid option over the stock shotgun. Okay, what next? Let's do, okay, so the Eureka Effect suffers from the same problem that the stock wrench has. If you're just picking a wrench to play with the entire time, the Eureka Effect is usually just the worst option. The Eureka Effect is pure, thoroughly only a utility that you use at the beginning of a round to get your teleporters out and to get the rest of your buildings up. You're doing you're pairing the Eureka Effect with the Jag to get your shit set up, and then you're good to go. As soon as your teleporter's down, you immediately swap off that and either go to stock or the Jag or the fucking Southern Hospitality, something else, right? Or even the fucking Gunslinger. You're never using the Eureka Effect as this long-term viability option for continuous play. Only when you're building fucking teleporters, and that's it. If you ever try to use the Eureka Effect to engage any kind of long-term play without changing your loadout, you're usually gimping yourself most of the time. But it can still be effective, much like the stock wrench, because you can teleport back to spawn whenever you want, and then teleport back to your entrance. So you can do a lot of stupid gimmick shit with this thing. You can plop down an exit behind somebody, or behind the enemy team, and suddenly appear with a level 3 like, surprise! And then you just plop that down, and then whoop, go back to spawn, like nothing ever happened, and fuck people over. In terms of the fun factor, you can have a lot more fun than with the stock wrench. But in terms of long-term viability and effectiveness in like drawn-out gameplay without changing items, this is the better option than this. But this is more fun in the gimmick sense. This is more effective in the effectiveness sense. Wow, I'm really bad at speaking today. I think you get the idea. I hope you get the idea. I don't know, man. The Southern Hospitality, it's just the stock wrench in that it functions exactly the same, except you have a 20% vulnerability to fire and you make people bleed on hit. So if there's not a pyro around, it's a straight upgrade to the stock wrench. So why would you not use this thing if there are no pyros on your team? But at the same time, it's just the stock wrench. So why would you use the stock wrench unless you're using it for like how I discussed before in terms of situational viability and maintaining defense? Its upside is that it's more powerful against spies in that you can mark them after they cloak because they're bleeding. And if you want to just, rush headlong into somebody and smack them a couple of times, yeah, you can do that. And if you're playing on a non-Valve server with random crits turned off, then this actually has some shred of interesting viability over the stock wrench. Because let's think about this for a minute. When is a pyro ever gonna get close to an engineer if his sentry gun's up? Unless he's Ubered. And this thing has a 20% vulnerability against fire, but the ranged options for pyro that set people on fire are flare guns. And the initial hit on flare guns is only being boosted by 20%. So a flare gun shot's only gonna do 36 damage on the direct hit, and then it only adds 1 tick of afterburn per tick, or one point of damage of afterburn per tick. So it goes from 4 to 5. But if he's near a dispenser, not a problem. You have the scorch shit, but again, less damage on the initial hit, but you can just spam the ground and keep, igniting him and afterburn with that. That 20% damage vulnerability to fire only becomes a severe detriment if the engineer is by himself, not near his sentry gun, and a pyro manages to walk up on him to use his flamethrower. If an engineer is anywhere near his sentry gun, the pyro's not gonna be that dangerous to the engineer using this thing. It only becomes a severe problem when like an ubered pyro is just waltzing into a sentry nest, like with the fucking Dragon's Fury or something, just shredding him down and fucking annihilating him in 2 shots anyway. Yeah, and direct flame damage, 20% is a lot. But against flare guns and afterburn, it's more of a problem with afterburn because 5 damage per tick is pretty fucking high. But like on the initial hit, it's only like 6 to 4 extra damage depending on the flare gun. It makes afterburn slightly more annoying, but again, if you're there near a dispenser, yeah. If you're playing in a Valve server, use this because random crits on Engineer are fucking insane. The frequency which random crits occur ramps up with damage, so if you have a sentry gun down, you're pretty much always going to be critting with this thing. Whereas with this, it's only marginally more useful against spies when you don't get a random crit, and it makes you a little bit weaker to fire. So even in a server without random crits on, it's like, am I really wanting to use this thing? I mean, I could. If a pyro's not a problem, I may as well, but then it goes back to like, okay, changing wrenches around as the situation calls for it. In terms of an all-around, always using it, not changing your loadout style of play, I mean, it's about the same as the stock wrench if there's no random crits in it, if there's no random crits on. You know what? Here's the thing. I'm gonna bump it. I'll put it in C tier. It's lower than the stock wrench for the reasons I've just said. No random crits. The damage vulnerability against fire on it can be a little bit ass sometimes, especially against, you know, afterburn. It's not that huge of a problem if you're near a dispenser or a sentry gun, as an engineer usually is, especially if he's using something that's similar to the stock wrench. And it's only a huge problem when a pyro's ubered into him, and how often is a pyro ubered into an engineer nest? No, I'll leave it in D. It's just really underwhelming. It's really underwhelming. Does it need a rework? I don't think it needs a rework. I think it's fine. It just because something isn't as good as other options doesn't mean it needs some kind of a buff or a rework. This is okay. It has its spot in that it's like the stupid gimmick option, like I gotta fucking walk at somebody and fucking hack them to death with this axe in my hand. It's just Yeah, it's balanced but boring. Yeah, balanced but lackluster. Like the stock wrench. It's balanced but, you know, it's the engineer's main utility. This offers a little bit of flavor with that utility, but the flavor is bland. That's the best way to describe it. This is bland and this is, you know, flavor but still bland. That's about it. Okay, so the last 2 items, I mean, what's there to say about this thing, right? We'll put the fucking robot fisting glove at the top of B tier. Actually, I'll put it in A tier. We'll put it bottom of A tier. Mini sentries, as we all know, are fucking annoying. They build fast, they start doing auto aim chip damage, they suck to play against, but they die so easily. They die to a rocket, they die to a pipe. Like, they're so pitiful, really, right? It's 2 scattergun shots, they're so easy to take down. Mini sentries become a problem when you're engaged in an elongated fight with everyone else on that engineer's team. The sentry gun's by himself and the engineer's by himself, it's really not that much of a threat. The mini sentry gun is usually there to supplement the rest of the team's damage and the engineer's own damage, which is why this is the go-to wrench for battle engie, right? Because you throw down a mini sentry to distract whoever your target is. They're focusing on the mini sentry while you're shooting them with whatever shotgun you happen to have equipped. That's the main strategy. And this is the one you're wanting to use on like payload offense. If you're wanting to play a more offensive style of engineer, if you need some kind of quick thrown up defense to kind of shut down a small area while your team's pushing forward, then this is the go-to thing. But you can do a similar kind of play style with the Jag if you're on offense, where you can just always run this and constantly keep throwing down level 1s or level 2s and always having that there because you have the faster building speed and whatnot, and faster upgrade if you want to. So you can achieve some kind of similar effect with the Jag as you do the Gunslinger, but the extra health it gives you just slightly better implements and better enables that, you know, battle engie playstyle. And whenever I play battle engie, I almost always use the Gunslinger with the panic attack or the stock shotgun and the stock pistol. I pretty much just play stock engineer except with just this. I throw this down and then I fuck off and go shoot people with a shotgun or a pistol. While I leave my baby boy off to do his own thing. If you're not wanting to maintain buildings, this is your go-to, because you can just vomit out another sentry when that one goes down. The Funslinger is the Funslinger. Go ham with the shotgun of your choice. Just remember that level 1 sentries have better stats in every way except build speed. Yeah, exactly. Do I play battle engie on high tower? No, I'm not a fucking bastard. I never play engineer on high tower because I'm not evil. I'm not a sadistic motherfucker that likes inflicting irrecoverable pain. If you play mini sentry engineer on King of the Hill or high tower TDM, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. Sorry. Go to hell. But yeah, so that's the Gunslinger, pretty good. Last but not least, we have the Frontier Justice. When it comes to stored crit mechanics in TF2, there are two weapons that do it pretty well. You have the Man Melter, which requires you to go out of your way to extinguish somebody to get a stored crit, and it's on a projectile, and crit flares aren't really that devastating. Yes, it's 90 damage, it's good follow-up damage with a primary, but it's not that crazy. Frontier Justice, you have to sacrifice your main source of damage that is your sentry gun after keeping it alive long enough to either get assist kills or regular kills to actually get those stored crits. So the amount of work required and the amount of sacrifice required to get that stored crit is appropriately fair for the Frontier Justice. And on top of that, unlike something like the Diamondback, this thing has bullet spread, which makes it weaker at long range. If you're engaging it beyond medium range, your crit shots with this are way less effective. You're doing like 36 damage because only 1 or 2 pellets are hitting somebody. But if they're at medium to close range, you're popping them off for like, 100, 180 damage at the cap. It's pretty fucking good. But then you only have 3 shots. If you whiff those shots, you gotta reload. And, reload time's punishing on no matter what weapon you're using. Out of all of the crit storage weapons, Frontier Justice is the most appropriately balanced, and in my opinion, probably the most fun. I'm gonna bump it up a little bit. I'll bump it like at the, we'll leave it at the same. It's kind of on par. Actually, no, I'm gonna bump it above the Panic Attack, because I have more fun with this than I do the Panic Attack, and I can still be pretty effective with it. The amount of strategizing you can do with the Frontier Justice is really fun. And the mechanic's fun too. It's another really solid dopamine farm of a weapon for the Engineer as well. I think it's all right. I think it's in a good spot. And so whenever I'm using the Frontier Justice, I'm pretty much only ever using the Jag, because when you're using the Jag, you're able to get a higher health, higher DPS sentry up pretty quickly, and you can just vomit down a level 1 and maybe get it to a level 2, and you're more likely to get more assists and kills that way than you would with a mini sentry. You can get minis down more frequently, but they die so easily and their damage output is relatively small that you're more readily able to secure assists and kills with a default sentry than a mini sentry. So if I'm using the mini sentry, I'd rather have my damage be made up with a regular shotgun that has 6 shots and I don't have to worry about having only 3 and situational crits after if my gun manages to get a kill or an assist, than I would, just using the Jag and pairing it with this and, my gun goes down, my main damage dealer goes down, time to whip out this bad boy. I would say the Frontier Justice is pretty weak when you're using it with the Gunslinger. It's way more effective if you're using regular sentry guns with it. Because if you're playing classic Engineer, hanging around your guns, maintaining your buildings, warding off people that get too close with either your pistol or just regular shotgun shots with this thing, then this is really going to shine, because your maximum health DPS sentry guns are going to guarantee more assists and more kills, where you can get those crits more often. But then, again, comes down, are you going to sacrifice that sentry gun to use those crits? Either of your own volition or because someone killed it? Then up to you. In terms of functionality, the stock shotgun and the Frontier Justice are exactly the same. Same damage, same bullet spread, just 3 less shots. And then situational crits. I think it's better than the stock shotgun on Engineer. So, that's a wrap. That's a wrap! Engineer's done. We did it. My throat's very tired now.